Thank you for joining us today at Homestead for Life. Today we are going to be talking about aloe, how to grow it, how to harvest it, how to store it, and some health properties, some benefits of aloe. Everywhere. I don't know if they're listed on the invasive plant species list, but they probably should be because they will multiply and take over. This one's been in this pot for a few years. We've kept it in the pot to contain it, restrain it, and you can see how well that's gone for us, right? So it has probably a dozen little baby plants in here that we could pick out and plant elsewhere and have a whole aloe farm, I suppose, if we wanted to. It grows like crazy. It does take about 3 years until the plant's fully mature. And when you are harvesting your aloe, you want to start at your bottom leaves. These are your oldest and most mature leaves. If we were to zoom in, which we'll do here in a moment, if you were to zoom in, you'll see we've got some old, dry, kind of nasty leaves on the bottom. The oldest leaves are on the bottom. I've turned it away so you don't see all the ugly leaves from that side so much, but we'll show you some anyway. So to harvest your aloe, you are going to take a sharp knife. You are going to go to your lowest big fat leaf that you can and just cut it as close to the base as you can. So we're going to do a couple. You don't want to harvest all of it all the time because you don't want it to start dying back on you. However, it grows and spreads so prolifically that I don't really care. I've got a couple more of these growing in pots out in the yard as well, plus the 8,000 babies in this pot. So we're going to get a couple leaves going just so you can see the process. Also, be careful, they are really stabby, and it bit me, and that's going to happen. So just be cautious. One of the things you want to be aware of is once you cut it, it's going to start oozing sort of a yellow sap. It's called aloin, and you want to let it kind of drain that out, drip that out for about an hour before you do anything else with your plant. So I'm just going to let these kind of sit in this tray, and already where it's wiping, I'm seeing little yellow drops in my little white dish. So we're going to let that sit. I'm not going to make you wait the whole hour, but while it's doing that, let's hit on some of our health benefits of aloe. So aloe is typically used for sunburns, right? Burns in general, skin conditions, wound healing. Some people even use it for baldness. People will put it on their scalp and in their hair to help with dry skin. Those are the main commonly recognized treatments for topical use. For oral use, ingesting the gel, it's been used for weight loss, diabetes, hepatitis, the list goes on and on. However, there have been studies about a lot of that. So studies for irritable bowels have had mixed results. One test had slightly more people said it helped than the placebo, and the two other studies were pretty even on whether or not the aloe helped or the placebo helped. But then there's also been studies with mice where the mice ended up with gastrointestinal cancer. So I will not be eating it, but if you and your doctor choose that that's the right thing for you and your health issues, rock on. If you are going to harvest the babies, very, very easy to do. Not easy to do without getting stabbed, but in general, easy to do. You just kind of reach in and grab one of the little clusters and yank it out. And plant that, and that's our little baby aloe. Aloe is very, very easy to grow. If I wanted to transplant this, I would literally pull it out of the pot and throw it in my yard where I wanted it to grow. and do nothing, because one, I'm lazy, and two, I don't think I could kill this if I tried. I would not even bother digging a hole. Maybe water it the first day or two. It's gonna be fine. So that's aloe, and we will come back after this has had some time to seep out that yellow nasty stuff, aloe in, and then we'll come back and finish harvesting our aloe. Now that our aloe has sat for about an hour, we've got a little bit of yellow ooze coming out of it. We're going to cut the edges off, rinse it under running water, and then we're going to harvest our aloe. So, the first thing we want to do, I'm going to cut the ends off. And then I'm going to cut down the sides and get the sharp pokey parts out of here so I can maybe stop stabbing myself. It's also going to make it easier to scoop out the aloe without the sides in the way. So I'm going to rinse these off and I'll be right back. All that off. There's a good chance this is going to go flying across my kitchen and slime everything. And then we're going to take that goo, put it into our bowl, and move on to the next pieces of aloe. Alright, so we've got our aloe slime. I did get a couple pieces of the stem came up with the spoon. Not nearly as bad as when I've used a knife though. So we'll grab those out, but we are going to strain this here in a moment, and the strainer is going to catch these too. So, it's like trying to pick eggshells. Alright, so we'll wait for the strainer to catch up. So the next step is to wash our hands, so I'll be back in just a moment. Now that my hands are de-slimed, we're back to our aloe gel. So our next step is going to be to blend it. Okay, we're going to get all the juices and all the slime all mixed in, pick out the bigger chunks when we strain it, and then we get to store it. So it will store in a jar in your refrigerator for a couple weeks, or you can freeze it in ice cube trays or any kind of little molds, whatever you have handy, and it will store in your freezer for about 6 months. Okay? That way you can take it out when you've got a sunburn, a wound, nothing deep and crazy, but small cuts and things like that, it would help fantastically with. Okay? So next step is to mix it. So now we have a big foamy glob of snot. So now we're gonna strain it into our jar. You can also, after this has been filtered, a lot of people make soap with it. Stay tuned, there may be those videos later. Also, please don't hesitate to put in the comments anything that you would like videos on. We are open to suggestions. There's a lot of things that we do and we've done that we don't think twice about that maybe other people would be interested in. So now we're just going to strain it into our mason jar. A little bit at a time because my strainer is much bigger than my mason jar. Push it through there. So we have our filtered aloe. So now we're going to pour it into our ice cube tray. Now I'm not going to leave it in the ice cube tray in the freezer. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a couple days to freeze real solid in the deep freeze. And I'm going to pop them out, throw them in a Ziploc bag. That way I have them for scrapes and cuts and burns. I also have them in little cubes if I do decide to make soap or anything else. Always better to have it and not need it, right? Alright, so 3 leaves filled up almost 5 little ice cube trays. Now, I'm sure everyone knows that you can use this fresh, right? With a sunburn or a small cut, you can just break a leaf off, rub it on your wound, rub it on your burn, and it will help your burn, okay? The yellow poison stuff, the aloe that we let seep out of it a little bit and then we rinsed off of it, is mostly causes issues if you ingest it. There are some cases where people are allergic, but for the most part, if you're using it topically, that stuff's not going to be a big deal. Also, another way to store this long term is you can freeze dry it. I would remind you that anything freeze dried, taking out all that moisture, and this is, I believe I read 90% water. There's a lot of moisture in this, so that's going to make your powder very, 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 very concentrated. So if you're not factoring that in with a 200-to-1 ratio, from what I've read, again, not a scientist, a 200-to-1 ratio when you're ingesting it after that, it can make you sick. And we already discussed the whole rat testing, mouse testing, right? So I don't suggest ingesting it anyway, but for topical solutions, here you go, and it should last about 6 months in your freezer. And that's it. That's all I've got about aloe. It is very simple to grow in Florida. Again, if I just pop out any of these little plants and throw them in the yard, 90% of them will take and grow, which is why it's in a pot, so I can limit its spread. It will grow indoors, it will grow outdoors. It is a very, very hardy plant with some great health benefits. So enjoy your aloe.